Yella Beezy has been exposed for allegedly trying to get the witnesses in his capital murder case killed. And the full story is darker and more calculated than most people are ready to hear. The people who are supposed to walk into that courtroom and testify against him are now in serious danger. Their covers have been blown. Their identities are out there. And the closer this trial gets, the more alarming the situation becomes for everyone involved. This is one of the most disturbing developments in one of the most closely watched criminal cases hip-hop has ever seen. And we are about to break down every single layer of it. So stay locked in, because this is only going to get deeper. But real quick, if you're serious about winning in the rap game, I put everything I know into one ebook. I'm talking how to actually grow an audience from zero, how to get labels reaching out to you with deals, and even how to get paid in this industry without ever touching a mic. And nah, it's not too late. People love to say the wave passed. It didn't. New artists and new hustlers are blowing up every single day, and the ones eating are the ones who started now instead of waiting. It's only $39. That's a few cups of coffee for a blueprint that can change how you move in this game forever. Links in the description bio, go grab it. Then let's get back to the video. Yo, what's good, fam? In this video, we are going to break down everything. The capital murder case against Yella Beezy, the court ruling that put witness names in front of the entire world, and every single individual now publicly listed as a state witness heading into the August 24th trial. We are going to talk about Trap Boy Freddy and why his name on that list shocked the Dallas rap community. We are going to talk about the alleged co-defendants, Mo3's own mother, his manager, and the person who might be the most surprising witness of all, Yella Beezy's own girlfriend. And we are going to get into why legal observers, fans, and people connected to this case are genuinely worried about what happens to these witnesses now that their identities are public. Let's get into it. Real talk, let us go back and set the foundation first. On November 11th, 2020, rapper Mo3, born Melvin Noble, was shot and killed in broad daylight on Interstate 35E in Dallas, Texas. What happened that day was not a random act of violence. According to investigators, it was a calculated, coordinated ambush. Mo3 was driving northbound on the freeway when another vehicle pulled alongside him. The alleged shooter got out of his car in the middle of traffic, and Mo3, sensing what was happening, jumped out of his own vehicle and took off running. The gunman chased him on foot and shot him in the back of the head. Mo3 was rushed to a nearby hospital where he later died. A bystander was also injured in the chaos. This happened in the middle of the day on a public highway in front of witnesses. And that bold, calculated nature of the killing is exactly what told investigators this was not random. This was ordered. For years, the case went cold on the surface, but behind the scenes, investigators were building something. Then in March 2025, a Dallas County grand jury handed down an indictment that shocked the music world. Marquise Conway, known to the world as Yella Beezy, was charged with capital murder while remuneration, the legal term Texas uses for murder for hire. Prosecutors allege that Conway orchestrated the hit on Mo3, paying a man named Kewan Dontrell White to carry out the shooting because of a long-running, deeply personal feud between the two Dallas rappers. White had already been arrested back in December 2020. He is currently serving an 8-year and 9-month federal sentence on firearms charges connected to the incident. Conway posted a $750,000 bond and has been on house arrest since his arrest. The trial is now locked in for August 24, 2026. And for those keeping track, Kewan White faces his own separate murder trial on that exact same date. 2 trials, same case, same day. Now here is where the story takes a turn that a lot of people were not ready for. Back in March 2026, the defense filed what is known as an omnibus pretrial motion before Judge Chika Anyam of Dallas County Criminal District Court, a formal legal request demanding that prosecutors hand over everything the defense is entitled to before trial begins. Witness lists, physical evidence, lab results, any information that could benefit Conway's legal team. Judge Anyam heard and ruled on that motion, and as part of the discovery process that followed, the prosecution was required to produce its witness list. On July 27, 2026, Assistant District Attorney Thomas Adams filed the state's witness list naming 194 people. And because that document became part of the public court record, those names did not stay locked behind closed doors. They hit the internet within hours. and once they were out, there was no pulling them back. That is the moment everything changed, because Judge Anyam's ruling set the legal machinery in motion that ultimately put those 195 names in front of the entire world. This is not about blaming the judge. The discovery process is a constitutional requirement, and every defendant has the right to know who is testifying against them. But the real-world consequence of that ruling in a capital murder case involving two well-known Dallas rappers with deep ties to the streets is that every single person on that list is now publicly exposed. And in a case where the alleged crime was a hired killing carried out on a public highway, that exposure is not a minor inconvenience. For a lot of observers, it is a matter of life and death. So let us get into the witnesses themselves, fam, because this is where the documentary gets real. And we are going to go through each one individually, because each name on this list carries its own weight, its own story, and its own set of implications. Let us start with Trap Boy Freddy. Born Devarius Moore, Trap Boy Freddy is one of the most well-known names in the Dallas rap scene. And here's what makes his presence on this witness list so jaw-dropping for people who have been following this story. Trap Boy Freddy has recorded music with Yella Beezy. The two have collaborated on tracks. They have been in the same circles. There was a well-documented period where these two moved in the same lane. So when his name surfaced on the prosecution's witness list, the reaction was immediate. The blogs went crazy. The comment sections exploded. People could not believe that someone who had been publicly connected to Conway would now be sitting on the other side of this case in the context of a prosecution witness list. And it gets even more layered than that, because the song On Your Head, a Trap Boy Freddy and Yella Beezy collaboration, was actually one of the tracks prosecutors wanted to use as evidence in the trial. The judge ultimately ruled that the song could be used, but only with Trap Boy Freddy's vocals removed. A detail that tells you just how deeply embedded Freddy is in the entire legal narrative surrounding this case. His name has been referenced in hearings, in motions, in court orders. His voice was literally being edited out of an exhibit, and now he is listed as a state witness. That is not a coincidence, fam. That is a situation. And beyond the legal dimension, think about what this means on a human level. These were two men who made music together, who shared studio sessions, who were publicly connected in the Dallas rap scene in ways that fans celebrated. The fact that Trap Boy Freddy now occupies space on the prosecution's witness list in a capital murder case involving his former collaborator is the kind of irony that does not need any additional commentary. The streets understand exactly what that means. And now that his name is publicly attached to this prosecution, anyone paying attention in Dallas knows exactly who Trap Boy Freddy is in the context of this case, and what his presence on that witness stand could mean for Yella Beezy's fate. That kind of visibility carries its own kind of risk, and people close to this situation know it. Now let us talk about Quan White. If you have been following this case at all, you already know this name. Quan Dontrell White is the alleged gunman, the man prosecutors say Yella Beezy hired to pull the trigger on Mo 3 that November afternoon on I-35. White was arrested just weeks after the shooting in December 2020. He has already pleaded guilty to federal firearms charges connected to the incident and is currently serving his sentence. But here is the thing. His own murder trial for Mo 3's killing is set to begin on August 24th, the exact same day as Conway's trial. Prosecutors allege that White was not just a random hire. He appeared on stage with Conway at a concert shortly before Mo 3 was killed, suggesting a level of trust and closeness between the two men. If White takes the stand, or if information from his case bleeds into Conway's proceedings, the testimony could be devastating. He is a co-defendant who was physically present at the center of this alleged conspiracy. His position on the witness list makes him one of the most watched individuals in this entire case. And with his name now fully public, the question of his personal safety heading into August 24th is one that prosecutors are almost certainly thinking about around the clock. Right behind White in terms of significance is Devin Brown, also known as Devin Maurice Brown. Brown is listed as another alleged co-defendant, and he is facing both federal and state charges connected to the alleged murder for hire plot. According to reports, Brown has denied any involvement in the killing, but his indictment on related federal gun and drug charges means he is already legally entangled in the broader conspiracy that prosecutors are laying out. His potential testimony, or the information he possesses, could help prosecutors establish how the alleged plot was organized and how multiple individuals were allegedly coordinated around a single deadly objective. Every person prosecutors put on that stand is a thread, and Devin Brown is a thread tied directly to the inside of the alleged operation. Now that his name is out there as a listed state witness, he is no longer just a co-defendant operating in the background. He is a publicly identified person expected to testify in a capital murder trial, and that comes with consequences that extend well beyond the courtroom. Then there is Benjamin Rainwater. He served as Mo3's manager. His role in this case is different from the co-defendants, but no less significant. Rainwater was the person closest to Mo3's professional world. His movements, his business dealings, his schedule, his relationships with other artists in the industry. A manager knows things. A manager sees things. And in a case where the prosecution is trying to establish a timeline of events, a deepening feud, and a coordinated decision to end someone's life, the person who was managing a victim's career is going to have information that nobody else has access to in quite the same way. Rainwater's expected testimony could fill in critical gaps about who knew what, when they knew it, and how the tension between these two camps escalated to the point where someone ended up dead on a Dallas freeway. And now that his name is public, Rainwater is no longer just a behind-the-scenes figure. He is a named witness in one of the most dangerous criminal cases Dallas has seen in years. Now, fam, this next name is one that carries a weight that no legal document can fully capture. Nicole Noble is Mo3's mother. She is listed among the state's expected witnesses, and her presence in this courtroom will carry an emotional gravity that is unlike anything else in these proceedings. A mother who lost her son on a public highway shot down in broad daylight, now expected to take the stand and speak into the record of a capital murder trial. Prosecutors often use the testimony of a victim's family member to humanize the person who was killed, to remind a jury that behind every case file is a real human being with people who loved him. Nicole Noble's testimony could accomplish exactly that. It could also provide context about her son's life, his relationships, and the circumstances that surrounded the period leading up to his death. Her presence on that witness list is one of the most emotionally charged elements of this entire proceeding, and having her name now publicly tied to the prosecution's witness lineup in a case this volatile is something that sits heavily with a lot of people following this story closely. And then there is a name that, when it surfaced publicly, absolutely sent shockwaves through the conversation. DeAndrea Harris is Yella Beezy's girlfriend. His own girlfriend is on the prosecution's witness list. Let that sink in for a second, fam. When the internet caught that detail, the speculation started immediately and has not slowed down since. What does she know? What does she see? What does she hear? The answer to those questions could determine the temperature of this entire trial. A partner in someone's personal life is in a unique position. They have access to conversations, to emotions, to admissions, to context that no investigator, no co-conspirator, and no business associate can replicate. Whether her testimony is powerful or limited, the fact that the prosecution listed her at all signals that they believe she has something meaningful to offer the court. Her name alone changed the entire narrative of this case when it went public, and it remains one of the most talked about details surrounding the August 24th trial date. But beyond the speculation, there is a very real and very serious concern about what it means for her personally to be publicly identified as a witness against the man she is in a relationship with, in a capital murder case, with the entire internet watching. Now let us talk about what the publication of all these names actually means, because this is the part of the story where things get very serious very fast. Once witness names become public in a case of this nature, a capital murder trial involving two rappers from the same city with ties to the street, with a network of people who know these individuals personally, the concern is not theoretical. In high-profile criminal prosecutions, witness safety is one of the most critical issues prosecutors have to manage. When identities are exposed, the concern among legal experts and observers shifts immediately to intimidation, harassment, and the potential for far worse. This is not a corporate fraud case. This is not a white-collar situation where the witnesses are accountants and executives. This is a murder-for-hire trial, and the people expected to testify include individuals embedded in the same culture, the same city, and the same community where the alleged crime took place. That context matters enormously, and here's where the headlines claiming that Yella Beezy was trying to get the witnesses killed come from. Because fam, when you connect the dots on this timeline, the picture that emerges is one that a lot of people have found extremely disturbing. The defense sought the disclosure of witness information as part of the standard discovery process. That is their legal right. But the combination of that disclosure becoming public, paired with earlier testimony that revealed how difficult it was for investigators to get anyone to cooperate in the first place, sent a very specific message to a very wide audience. And that message is what fueled the headlines. Think about what Dallas Police Detective Eric Barnes testified to during the pretrial hearings. Barnes served as one of the state's primary investigators on this case and took the stand during the July hearings focused on the rap music evidence. He told the court plainly that investigators could not get cooperation from witnesses on the street. People were not willing to talk. People were not willing to come forward. The streets were not giving up information, and law enforcement knew it. Barnes testified that because of that wall of silence, investigators had to go a different route entirely. They turned to YouTube. They turned to social media. They combed through rap lyrics, Instagram lives, and digital records to build their case. Because in his own words, people were not willing to speak and cooperate with law enforcement. He was direct about it. The investigation had to go to YouTube to get the first-person narration they could not get in an interrogation room. Barnes also testified that Q-On White appeared on stage with Conway at a concert shortly before Mo3's death, and that the feud between the two camps was, in his words, very real. One that had already cost lives before November 2020. He testified that based on lyrics in Beezy's songs, he believed Conway had hired hitmen to carry out the killing. That is the investigator's conclusion, stated on record in open court. And when you add the fact that witness names then became publicly known, names of people who had already been too afraid to come forward, the picture that emerges is one that a lot of people in and around this case find deeply unsettling. The prosecution's broader theory connects all of these elements into one narrative. Prosecutors allege that Yella Beezy and Mo3 had been in a documented, escalating feud for years, a rivalry that touched multiple shooting incidents, diss records, and public confrontations. They allege that Conway ultimately decided the feud needed to end permanently, and that he paid Q-On White to make that happen. As part of their evidence presentation, prosecutors pointed to a $40,000 cash withdrawal Conway made just days after Mo3's killing. They argued that lyrics in songs like Keep It in the Streets contained references to placing a bounty on Mo3's head, and that other tracks celebrated his death after the fact. The judge ultimately ruled that 2 of Conway's songs and 1 of Mo3's songs could be played for the jury, while blocking others that prosecutors also wanted to introduce. But the songs that did make it through, and the lyrics they contain, are now part of the evidentiary record that 12 jurors will hear. And when those lyrics reference a bounty, reference violence against a specific rival, and that rival ends up dead, the combination becomes something a defense team has to work very hard to neutralize. Witness protection is always a critical issue in high-profile criminal cases, but the circumstances surrounding this particular trial have elevated that concern to a level that is genuinely unusual. In most prosecutions, especially those involving charges as serious as capital murder, prosecutors go to significant lengths to keep witness identities shielded from public exposure for as long as legally possible. The reason is straightforward. A witness who becomes publicly known before they testify is a witness who is now potentially exposed to every possible form of pressure that exists in the community connected to the case. And in a case like this one, where investigators already established on record that people refused to cooperate because they were afraid, the public disclosure of witness names is not something that can be quietly ignored. It is a development that changes the security calculus for every single person on that list. And social media made everything faster and louder. The moment the witness names circulated, the blogs had them, YouTube channels had them, hip-hop news pages were posting breakdowns within hours. Comment sections were tagging individuals, speculating about their motivations, questioning their loyalty, debating what their testimony might mean. Every person named on that witness list became a public conversation topic overnight. And for individuals who are already operating in a world where speaking to law enforcement carries its own set of risks, that level of visibility is genuinely alarming. This is not just a concern for legal observers. Once those names were out there, every person scrolling through their phone in Dallas, in Houston, in every city where this music traveled, knew exactly who was expected to walk into that courtroom and speak. That kind of exposure cannot be taken back. The defense and prosecution are approaching this case from fundamentally different angles, and that tension is visible in every major pretrial ruling. Prosecutors have been fighting to get as much evidence in front of the jury as possible. Music, social media posts, financial records, co-defendant testimony, and personal witnesses from inside both Conway's and Moultrie's lives. The defense, led by attorneys Toby Shook, John Gussio III, and Michael Mola, has pushed back hard at every turn. They secured the exclusion of 10 Yella Beezy songs from the trial. They got the court to rule that an Instagram live video Conway recorded on the day Moultrie was murdered would not be allowed in front of the jury. They successfully argued that multiple other shootings and prior incidents required the judge's advance approval before prosecutors could raise them. These are not minor victories, but the core of the case, the allegations, the financial evidence, the witness lineup, and at least 3 songs survived the pretrial process. And the prosecution is heading into August 24th with a case that has been shaped and refined by months of legal maneuvering. So where does all of this leave us? The controversy surrounding this trial is no longer just about the allegations against Marquise Conway. It is no longer just about what happened on Interstate 35 on a November afternoon in 2020. It is about the people who are now publicly known to be standing on the edge of a courtroom preparing to testify in a case where the defendant faces either life in prison or the death penalty. Think about who is on that list. A rapper who used to collaborate with Yella Beezy, the alleged trigger man already serving federal time, a second co-defendant facing his own charges, Moultrie's manager who knew his every move, his mother who buried her son after a highway execution, and Yella Beezy's own girlfriend. Every single one of them is now publicly named. Every single one of them has to walk into that courtroom on August 24th, knowing the entire world is watching. The public disclosure of that witness list transformed the conversation around this trial in a way that cannot be reversed. Those names are out there now. That information is in the public domain. And every person on that list is now navigating whatever that means for their personal safety, their relationships, and their lives. What this situation exposes is the enormous challenge prosecutors face when they take on high-profile criminal cases involving public figures from tightly connected communities. The legal system requires transparency. The defense has a constitutional right to know who the witnesses are. That is not in dispute. But the real-world consequences of that transparency in an environment where witnesses were already too afraid to cooperate, where the alleged crime involved a broad daylight execution on a public highway, and where a single tweet can reach hundreds of thousands of people overnight. Those consequences are real, they are serious, and they are unfolding right now in real time. Prosecutors knew this risk existed when they built their case around witnesses from inside the same world the defendant inhabits. And now that the names are public, managing that risk has become just as important as winning the trial itself. At the end of the day, fam, whether Yella Beezy is ultimately convicted or acquitted, whether the jury believes the prosecution's story or the defense's alternative narrative, one thing is already certain. The public release of those witness names has become one of the most controversial and consequential developments in this entire case. It has overshadowed the music evidence debate. It has overshadowed the bond hearings and the pretrial motions. It has overshadowed almost every other procedural development that came before it. And as August 24th gets closer, the safety and visibility of these 6 individuals is going to remain the central issue that nobody on either side of this case can afford to ignore. This is bigger than rap. This is bigger than one trial. And wherever it goes from here, the story of what happened to those witness names is going to be part of the Yella Beezy case forever. But the witness names now fully public, the trial just weeks away, and a capital murder charge carrying either life or death on the table. Do you believe these witnesses are safe going into that courtroom? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now because this conversation is far from over. And if you have been rocking with us on this story from the beginning, make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell because we are going to be on every single development in this trial as it unfolds. Do not miss it.